remember a conversation I had in China with a very dear friend of mine who owns a factory, and he said, what do you think about the tariffs? And I said, well, you know, what's going to happen is our price will have to go up, you know, to cover the tariffs, or we make less profit. If there's enough profit, that's how we'll handle it. And I said, what do you think is going to happen in China? And he goes, it doesn't affect China. It only affects you. It only affects Americans. And I'm like, no. I said, that's not true. It affects you. Because then people go to other countries. The whole point is you're going to make more product in America. And he's like, no, it won't affect us. And I said, why do you think more than 50% of the factories in your area are now closed, as he knows? And he goes, no, that's just because they don't have some people buying. I'm like, aha. I said, right, because the tariffs have gone up. I said, I don't know if that's why, but what do you think is going to happen? They're going to buy somewhere else. That's all.
So wait, let me get this straight. For years, we've been called conspiracy theorists about big corporations just slapping the Made in America or Made in France logos on everything. And all of these products were actually made in China. And now, Chinese manufacturers, they are straight up exposing them. Posting videos, receipts, factory floor footage, it's all out there. Turns out that $800 handbag, that luxury CERN, artisan cookware, yeah, that all costs $7 to make in China. Your favorite woke corporation, they just slap their logo on it and sell it back to you for 100 times the regular price. And here's the kicker. The same corporations are out here crying about Trump's tariffs, claiming it would ruin business. No, what ruined business is out here lying to Americans while outsourcing jobs, exploiting labor, and, well, pretending to be premium brand. Now, the Chinese manufacturers, they are cutting the middleman and they are going straight to the source, the American people. Yes, you have to order in bulk, like 100 plus units, but they're offering the transparency in the U.S. that corporations are refusing to give. Here's the truth. Trump's tariffs, they didn't hurt the American consumer. They hurt globalist corporations who are overcharging Americans, all while profiting off of huge profits by cheap labor. And now they're getting exploited by the very factories they exploited themselves. So if you're a small business owner, this is your moment. You can work directly with suppliers, you can build your own brand, and cut all the corporate snakes out of the equation. Just know what you're doing, because not everything is worth buying in bulk. But hey, the opportunity's there, right? Tariffs didn't fail, greed did. And Trump warned us. Now it's all coming to light.
One bag costs 6,150 from the boutique. The other 300 made by me.
Have you guys seen that TikTok video that the Chinese guy posted about exposing how luxury goods are made? Basically, most of the luxury brands we use every day are made in China, then shipped to Europe and sold to consumers at a premium. A wedding ring that we can buy for $2, they turn it into $2,000. China is the world's largest processing plant. You buy Gucci, 80% is made in China, Prada, 60% is made in China. Even Chanel, Fendi, Louis Vuitton, Adidas, Nike, etc. The only difference here is that China sends them to Europe and they put some little label on them that says made in France, made in Italy. It's ridiculous. While people are still criticizing H&M for being cheap and of poor quality, those expensive and good products that you think are made in France and Italy are actually from China. So what do you have to worry about? Come on, your MAGA hats are made in China. And now President Trump has imposed an additional 144% tariff on China. Vice President J.D. Vance called the Chinese peasants. They're out of line. If you don't let me do my business, we can't do ours.
A 2-hour drive outside the Cambodian capital Phnom Penh, a convoy of semi-trailers passed by.
Let's drive straight through.
Moments later, an enormous arch greeted us with signage in 2 languages, the local language Khmer and beneath Chinese. But it's very clear who is in charge of this special economic zone rising from the dirt.
Hello, sir. Hello?
The manager of this furniture factory invited us in.
Okay, thank you.
They moved here from China a month ago to produce ottomans to export to the United States.
Most of the companies coming here are Chinese.
Yes.
And their driving incentive to avoid US tariffs. The US-China trade war is the main reason for this explosion of Chinese investment in Cambodia. In 2016, before President Trump took office, Cambodian exports to the US were roughly $3 billion. Last year, they topped $12 billion, representing nearly 30% of the country's GDP. The Cambodian government says more than half of the factories in Cambodia are Chinese-owned.
To America.
Yes.
While Chinese companies are skirting US tariffs, economists we spoke to say they are playing by the rules. But there are fears Cambodia's economy could become collateral damage.
Are you concerned that President Trump might put tariffs on Cambodia, considering the Chinese investments?
Yes, of course.
Chinese garment factory owner Mr. Huang moved to Cambodia 20 years ago, capitalizing on tax breaks and lower wages while still running factories in China. But when the trade war began in 2018, he moved all operations to Cambodia and now exports 60% of his garments to the US.
And who are your customers?
It's Walmart, Costco.
And he said those orders have only multiplied since President Trump announced new tariffs.
And Anna Corin joins us now from Beijing. Anna, as you mentioned, there are already tariffs on China. President Trump says he's going to add more tariffs. What's that going to do to China?
Well, John, Chinese manufacturers certainly are going to feel some pain. We spoke to one who said she'll try to absorb the tariffs. Others won't be in a position to do so. That's when you'll see those higher costs passed on to American customers. But those retaliatory tariffs we saw from China were mainly symbolic last month. Now they're going to target U.S. agriculture, and that's U.S. farmers.
And Anna, China's National People's Congress starts on Wednesday. That, of course, is their big government meeting. Their economy is not exactly in great shape. So what are they expected to do now?
That's right, Maurice. It's been hurting from the property crisis and high youth unemployment. So this National People's Congress is about laying out the roadmap to strengthen the economy. I spoke to an advisor to the Chinese government last night, and he said that despite all this noise about a trade war, he still is confident a deal will be done and that President Trump will visit China later this year.
Anna Corin reporting from Beijing. Thank you, Anna.
The U.S.-China trade war has kicked off. Just look at these containers piling up on the docks. These are all waiting to be exported. This footage was taken on April 11th by a Douyin user in Zhejiang at a local port. It's not just Zhejiang. In recent days, major export hubs along China's coast, including Guangdong, Shanghai, and even Hong Kong, have seen freight operations come to a near standstill. Ports in these areas are now filled with containers waiting to be shipped. The 145% tariff imposed by the United States on Chinese goods has officially taken effect, triggering severe disruption across China's export supply chain. According to Chinese financial outlet Caixin, at Shanghai's Yangshan and Waigaoqiao ports, many shipments bound for the U.S. were rushed onto vessels in a race to depart before the tariffs were enforced. But after the U.S. announced a 125% tariff, Shanghai's once busy export activity came to a sudden stop within days. By April 10th, almost no cargo ships bound for the U.S. could be seen. Reports say many cargo ships and freight flights between China and the U.S. have been canceled. Containers that missed the shipping deadline are now stuck at dockside storage yards, and many exporters are filing customs return paperwork. It is estimated that about half the shipping capacity on U.S.-China routes will be canceled in the near future. According to Radio Free Asia, Mr. Qian, an exporter from Guangdong, currently on a business trip in Shanghai, said in an April 11th interview that Yantian Port in Guangdong is seeing the same situation as Shanghai. Containers are stacked high, and very few cargo ships are leaving.
That was the site outside of China's most recent bankrupt bank, the Jiangxi Bank of China. And I wish I could say that this was the first bank that we've seen in China go completely insolvent, but it's not. Because as you can see right now, the banking sector for China is facing an all-out massive crisis where in just 1 week, 40 of their banks have completely disappeared. I have to repeat that. 40 banks have collapsed in 1 week in China. I mean, that is just total catastrophe for that entire economy. And I wish I could say that the Jiangxi Bank was just a small local regional bank, but it's not. Because as you can see, they were the 44th biggest bank in all of China in 2023. Now the question becomes, what's the root cause of all of these banks collapsing at the same time? And as you can see, that China's smaller banks were already struggling with bad loans and exposures to the ongoing property crisis. And it gets even crazier than that when you look at these numbers. Because as you can see, some 3,800 such troubled institutions exist. They have 55 trillion won, which is 7.5 trillion US dollars in assets, which is 13% of the total banking system that have been mismanaged and accruing vast amounts of bad loans. $7.5 trillion. Wow. And keep in mind that this isn't good for anything going on in the economy for China or the world as a whole. So how will this impact the United States banking system moving forward? The answer is it shouldn't impact it too much. And the reason why is because we have a checks and balances system that happens within our banks where every year there's government oversight that happens within these banks that gives them grades and tells them if they need to make corrections based on their risk management and how they're doing as far as how close to insolvency they are. So right now, I don't expect this to impact the United States too much, but seeing those numbers with the Bank of China, I'm expecting to see a lot more Chinese bank collapses.
Did you know that many American Chinese restaurants are closing for good despite many people wanting more? And as you can see behind me, the share of restaurants in major cities that are Chinese are disappearing pretty fast. And this is pretty different from other type of restaurants like Korean or Indian, which stays pretty flat or increasing slowly. And this change is actually a good thing for most Chinese restaurant owners. And this is because opening a Chinese restaurant is a brutal business that requires you to be there 7 days a week. And it also requires you to work up to 100 hours every single week and not take any holidays, but earn significantly less compared to most Americans. And as somebody who had parents who worked at Chinese restaurants, you couldn't really see them a lot. In addition to this, they also didn't have good coverage for insurance, dental, or other care. And this made life really hard for those who owned Chinese restaurants or worked in them. And as a result, most of these restaurants simply closed after the parents retired. And their kids often didn't take over the business, instead took more traditional jobs instead. For example, they went into fields like computer science, dentistry, or consulting. And this meant that many of these classic as well as iconic restaurants simply closed down. And like I mentioned earlier, this might not be a bad thing at all, since it meant that these kids have better opportunities and simply more options.
All right, who else is glued to Chinese manufacturer TikTok? Man, they are blowing up the luxury goods market. I think they're going to blow it up much more than Bethany Frankel did for Chanel. One that is going around a lot, Senbags, S-E-N. I recommend you follow them. The gentleman went through the entire breakdown of how they create an Hermes bag, which is valued at, if you buy it in the US, $38,000. He goes through like every single thing that they use, the exact quality of an Hermes bag that they make in their warehouse. And the US dollar cost is $1,400. The difference between the $1,400 of actual labor and resources and the $38K is when Hermes puts their label on it. And they make all of these other luxury oh my God. Look, I, have been a big lover of like Target and Shein and Amazon for my clothing, because a lot of stuff is so heavily dupable now that, like, if I see something I like, at Free People or in Anthropology, I'm immediately looking for a dupe, and it's very easy to find. But at this point, if anyone is buying luxury goods anymore, I would have to ask, do you need your head examined? I'm here for it, man. I'm loving this. Who else is glued to this?
Friends who do foreign trade know how difficult it is to handle foreign trade this year. The United States has imposed this 34% tax, and many companies can't bear it. With a tariff of 145%, how can the bosses of Yiwu who do foreign trade survive? The business in the market has been very bleak in the past 2 or 3 years. This year's exports to the United States are estimated to be 50% less. In the end, we can only look at the European market and the Southeast Asian market of the Belt and Road Initiative. On April 9th, an employee in Jiangsu province shared a video online showing an empty workshop, saying that the factory had stopped working and was on holiday. She had to wait for notice on when to resume work, and she was forced to find temporary work. Hello friends, after the tariff policy came out, some companies have directly taken a 2-month holiday and have no orders. Those who understand know that this time the situation is very, very bad, and the situation is very, very serious. Now the workshop is full of foreign goods, and it is not known whether they can be shipped out or whether the other party wants them. Now the situation is like this. The factory has stopped working and producing. Hundreds of people have been disbanded on the spot, and all U.S. orders have stopped today. As soon as the tariff war started, the company's U.S. orders were all canceled overnight. The company went on holiday. Look, there is no one. I am a real furniture foreign trade factory for the U.S. market. Many people say to hold on, but a foreign trade factory that makes furniture has received orders from customers to suspend orders and will not ship. The factory has no orders. What should the employees do? How to hold on to the expenses? Then what will happen if it continues? Then the goods that are shipped are about to reach the U.S. port at sea. What can I do?
I finished cleaning. My shift is over, and now I'm unemployed. Where can I find a job? There are no orders, and I don't even have money to live on. Right now, with the tariff war going on, many people in China are losing their jobs. Even business owners aren't spared. Recently, everyone's talking about the increase in U.S. tariffs. For us in the textile industry, this is really a huge blow. A lot of our clients have either stopped placing orders or canceled them altogether. Things were already bad before, and now it's even more uncertain. With the intense competition going on everywhere, where can small and medium-sized businesses like us go? We have so much production capacity, but we can't sell overseas. If we try to sell in the domestic market, we're crushed by competition. It's like having too many eggs. They go bad before anyone eats them. On April 10th, the U.S. raised tariffs on Chinese goods to 145%. The new rate took effect immediately. One day earlier, on April 9th, President Trump announced an additional 125% reciprocal tariff on Chinese imports. This came on top of the existing 20% tariffs, which were originally imposed because the Chinese government failed to stop illegal immigration and fentanyl from entering the United States. So, which industries in China are being affected? According to the Peterson Institute for International Economics, the biggest impact will be on China's major exports to the U.S. This includes electronics, machinery, textiles, and garments. An article by a top Wall Street analyst says that Chinese companies exporting medical supplies are also taking a hit. One syringe manufacturer said that 40% of its existing U.S. orders are now under pressure to renegotiate prices.
The secrets Chinese factory will never tell you, but I will. Secret number one. Why the Chinese factories always tell you MOQ start from 1,000? It's very simple. Because you are foreigner. We tested. Factories quote foreigner price 30% higher than normal. And also the MOQ is 10 times more than the normal, so-called normal MOQs. Yep, you are paying foreigner tax. Secret number two, 82% of the quality issues are just because of the factory's laziness. They swap the QC to cut the costs and hope you will never notice. How about my clients? Every product will get quality checks from factory to shipment. My team is on it 24/7. Need the real deal? I'm the China partner. DM me. Let's outsmart the system. I'm Mike. Let me help you to save the money.
I told you so. I told you so. So word on the street is that China is asking the U.S. to cancel all tariffs. They made Donald Trump turn to Bobby Brown overnight. Donald Trump was like, and I know you're getting bored dealing with him, but I know you miss my loving, my hugging, the loving. China wants us back, baby. It's like an old ex that wants you back. It just ain't so good without you. It just ain't so good without you. Oh, U.S. baby. Oh, baby, please take them tariffs off of me. Meanwhile, Trump is doing like this. I'm at the UFC party event. Everybody screaming MAGA. Everybody saying USA, USA. China, I get back to you later. I get back to you later. You can't mess with the tariff king. This is the man who wrote the art of the deal, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Trump, King of America, third term Trump, make America great again, USA forever. We are dominating the world. We got over 75 countries that want to do deals with us. Oil prices are down. Gas prices are down. Stock prices is doing so good. The market is doing so much better. Tariff king
Donald Trump, the ultimate chess player. Make America great again. It's Daddy Jason. I love you. You love me. And I know you'll get bored dealing with you, but I know you miss my loving, my hugging, the loving. Make America great again.
Tariffs on China aren't really the risk the media wants you to believe. They're a once-in-a-generation shot to rebuild U.S. manufacturing.
They're in a deflationary recession/depression right now. They're trying to export their way out of it, and we can't let them do that. The Chinese business model and the economy are the most unbalanced, imbalanced in the history of the modern world.
That system, it's stretched thin, and now is the time to strike. Basant's not just describing a weakness. He's laying out an opening, a narrow window to bring factories back home, while China still needs our market more than we need theirs. And if we don't bring manufacturing back now, when their model's breaking, then when?